This is Chick2Chick Uncut, raw and unfiltered.
What an incredible chain of events. Waking up to find that the U.S. and Israel had worked together to launch attacks on Iran. Finding out that the president of Iran, the Ayatollah, had been killed in those attacks, and then Iran quickly retaliating, targeting U.S. military bases in the Middle East. There is a lot to cover here, and so I want to get right to our guest, Nadia Sharifi. She was born in Iran and raised under this regime, a regime that she remembers being oppressive and living in fear, and her family finally escaped to come and find freedom here in the U.S. Nadia, what an incredible thing that has happened. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I know this has been very, very difficult for you to watch. What did you think when you woke up to see what was going on in Iran?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. It's definitely important for a view of somebody that's used to live there and now obviously lives in America. So I appreciate your time and talking to me. You know, when I woke up yesterday morning to that news and the war, it's been emotional for months anyways, right? Because of everything that's going on. And the news tells you there's only not a few, but thousands of people have died, but there's hundreds of young women and men, Iranian men, have died because of these protests. So when I woke up in the morning, I laid in bed, and I never lay in bed. I get up out of bed and move, and I go to the gym Saturday mornings, and I just laid there, and I start watching the videos, and I woke up to text messages of people telling me, am I okay? I can't tell you how many people reach out to me. I just love my community, my people that are around me. And the more I started watching the videos, I found myself bawling. It's crazy.
Were these tears of joy? What were these tears when you say you were bawling?
Honestly, it brought up so much feelings. And, I have not been back home for 40 years. Like, America's my home. I love America, and it was our savior, I should say. And I love what I've done here. And it was fear, I guess, a little bit of fear, a little bit of happiness, a little bit of obviously the unknown. They were fighting for this for such a long time. And we saw a lot of it because we have some family back home now. Thank God my immediate family's here. I think it was emotional because it just brought up a lot of feelings in me from when I was over there and what I had endured, but also many years that we've been here that I know our distant family has been enduring, a lot of women especially. And you see a war, right? It's still, even though it's something that hopefully we can get rid of the regime and move on, there's still massive uncertainty. We have no idea who's going to take over and who's not going to take over and what's going to happen. And these are people that, Iranian people are loving people. They're just like, there's good people, there's bad people. Mm-hmm. The government always tends to be the problem, right? And this regime was a huge problem. So when I saw that, the Khomeini was dead, I couldn't even believe it. And you kind of wonder if it's true, if it's not true. You never know 100%, right? Unless you see the dead body in front of you. And so it was very emotional because there's hope, I guess. It felt a little bit of hope of hopefully that the regime will change and people will be free. 47 years of tyranny is unbelievable. And I only lived through it for 3.5 years when I was there.
And I mean, did you ever think this day would come? Did you ever think that you would see something like this in your lifetime?
Never, not in my lifetime. I totally did not. You pray for it, you hope for it, you think about it always. It doesn't leave your mind, especially when you grew up in it and you knew what it was before. I mean, I was there when the Shah's regime was there, and then I came to America. And then I went back when the regime was there, like this Ayatollah regime came about. So we went from a total freedom, total country that's exactly like here. It was exactly like here. We could drink, we could do whatever we wanted to do. We could go out, we could wear colors, we could listen to music. Then when we got there, it was literally pitch black when we got there, literally, because we got there in the middle of the night. And it just was, the shock factor of what the country had become was unbelievable.
Yeah, you probably didn't even recognize it. I'm sure of course there are so many mixed feelings. a lot of division to see what happened really in the middle of the night. Do you support President Trump? Do you think he did the right thing?
You know, I am not a very political person, but I think there were literally Iranians dying for help, right? Asking for help. And whether the help came in a form of war, or I wish it would have been a better way, honestly. Not that it's a war or an attack, however you want to look at it. I don't even know if it's a war. But at least the regime, the people that were running the regime are dead. And that's really what they were looking for. We were looking for some sort of change. And we knew within our country we were able to begin it, but we didn't know if we were going to finish it. And I guess I do support it in a way because all the head of the regime are dead. Like, I don't know how else that would have happened. But it's still, you know, a lot of people are dying and the war has happened. So I guess it's a double-edged sword, right? But something always has to be drastic for some sort of drastic results to be there, and that's called freedom.
Well, and to your point, you know, we're seeing all of these reports of civilian casualties, reports that schools were hit in these attacks. And I'm sure that is really hard to see and hard to watch.
It's honestly, the whole thing is hard to watch. In the last month, when people were protesting and they were killing, you know, they killed hundreds and thousands of young men and women. You know, and then you see the image, I can't get it, you know, with the girl that had the Ayatollah's, you know, the Khomeini's picture, and, you know, she's smoking a cigarette and she lights the picture with the cigarette. I mean, no woman can do that in Iran. You can't even show your hair, let alone do something that drastic. You know, they killed people for that. And casualties, it's unfortunate. I mean, my brother was a casualty during the Iran-Iraq war, right? I mean, that we lost him, you know, not to the war, but the fact that we couldn't get him out of the country. There are casualties all the time, but 47 years of tyranny, something had to give for this regime and this head of the snake, honestly, to be, you know, cut off.
Yeah. You have family still in Iran. Have you spoken to them? Have you heard from them? Are they safe? What are they saying? What are they describing?
There's not that much communication. Now, there are some videos that we're able to send on WhatsApp, a little bit on Instagram, but, you know, the internet's been down. Starlink had been, you know, with some communication there. But my family's my immediate family's all here. And a lot of my family, unfortunately, have passed away, you know, since we have moved here. But the ones that we can reach, they're absolutely hopeful. You know, they're scared. I mean, one thing for sure is scared. They're very, very scared. And my family's more from south. I was born in Shiraz, which is south of Iran. And most of it's happening in Tehran, which is the capital, which is north of Iran. But it's definitely we're just waiting to see what's going to happen next. There's a lot of videos you see that are people celebrating and thanking Trump and thanking America. And obviously, you know, Israel and Iran were friends we were allies for a very, very long time. It changed when the regime happened. So my family's definitely scared, but they're very hopeful that hopefully some sort of change will come. But people in Tehran are definitely the ones that are being affected more in the north.
Yeah, but they are safe. You said they're in the southern part of Iran, absolutely. And so they are safe. You know, you brought up some of the things that the president said, and President Trump said to the Iranian people, you know, take back your country. What do you think is going to happen? And what do you think the impact is going to be from all of this?
You know, we've been watching, the Shah's son is Shah Pahlavi. So Pahlavi was the Shah, his father, that ruled the country for a very long time and was westernized. There were many, and we're talking hundreds and thousands of Americans that lived in Iran. That's how Iran was just like here. And, you know, he's been on the news, he's been on social media a lot, Shah Pahlavi, his son. And I'm hoping, like, we're praying that he's the one that's going to be able to take over and you'll follow in a better way of his father's footstep. I have zero, obviously, like everybody else, I have zero clue. When he did say take over, you know, take back your country, it's wonderful. It's a great thing to say. But to be able to actually do it, that's a different story, right? That is going to take some time. it's an absolute uphill battle right now. We don't know who's good. There's probably other regime heads, and Khomeini was it, but there's other ones just like him still in that country. Who knows if they're going to try to, retake it and run it that way. But what we're praying for is for the Shah's son to come. That's really what we're hoping for.
Iran described this as a barbaric act and already threatened retaliation, revenge. I don't know. I'm scared when I hear that. Does that terrify you when you hear that?
I think any kind of threat like that, especially when it comes from a regime like that, the regime is making those threats. Mm-hmm. There are videos that I've seen that people in normal, average, everyday Iranians are praising Trump, praising America, thanking America, and are so happy that this has happened. The actual government, the regime is making these threats. And unfortunately, they do have the power. And I hope they don't do anything. I pray that nothing happens. And it could just be empty threats that they're saying that just to threaten. But I guess we will never know. And of course, it's extremely scary. Any kind of retaliation or war like this is very scary. The unknown, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we are grateful because something needed to happen for the months that hundreds and thousands of people were getting killed. And to see a country, you really didn't see much of this on social media, unlike everything else. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but not a lot of people were talking about Iran and the Iranian people, especially, whether it be anybody in the media, politics, actors, actresses, which you kind of wonder why. But it was really, we were wanting, I know that Iran wanted Trump to get involved. And we're kind of really happy that he did. But now we're just wondering what the aftermath is going to be. And all the Iranian people want no retaliation. It is not the people that want it. It's the regime.
Iran, known around the world as the #1 sponsor of terrorism. That's a hard thing, I would think, to carry around as someone who was born in Iran. And to your point, it is not the people, it is the government there. Did you feel any type of discrimination or, odd looks from people here in the U.S. when they hear that you were from Iran?
Oh, absolutely. When we first came to Iran, we looked like Iranians, right? We were refugees.
You mean when you first came to the U.S.?
To U.S., yes.
When you first came to the U.S.
When we first came to the U.S.,
yeah.
we asylum to U.S. And it took us a year and a half to get out of our country. When you talk about a country that, like you said, it is the #1 that for terrorists, right? It terrorizes its own people. Mm-hmm. That's what this country does. It has terrorized its own people. So it has zero respect for its own people, especially the women. What do we expect for it to do to other countries, right? So if it can't respect its own people, of course it's going to be even more devastating, to others, right? For them to be it is a terrorist group, but it's the regime that is, not the people. And it just makes it very, very hard when I first came here, especially to my brother, honestly. My brother's got more of the brunt of the, discrimination and people saying things to them. I remember it was very, very hard for them because for us girls, I think it was a little bit of a difference, but they were really, really hard. They were very, very bullied hard in school when we first got here.
So let's go back now. We've talked so much about the current events and what has literally just happened. And again, I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on the podcast because I know this was tough for you. And I know this was very emotional as this was all unfolding before you. Let's go back to Iran when you were born and raised under this regime. Let's go back to that time. Take us back.
So I was born in Iran in 1970. The regime changed in 1979. My father was already here in America many times, and he was studying at Penn State here in Pennsylvania, obviously, main campus Penn State, for his doctorate. He brought me to America first when I was about 6 years old. Not even that. And we were here for a couple of years. Then when we were here, he decided that he got his degree from his doctorate from here. and we wanted to go back home. So he's like, okay, let's go back home. But we always knew at some point we're going to come back to America. So in 1980, so a year of the regime had happened, but for some reason, till this day, he kind of beats himself up a little bit that he didn't know what had happened. That, in 1979, like he said, it was the worst decision he has ever made to bring us back to Iran. And it was just me and my younger brother, and the rest of my family were still there. So we went to Iran in 1980, so I was 10 years old. And talk about the shock of the world. So it was really, really hard. I'm coming from America, I can do anything and be anything, obviously, and wear anything and listen to anything. And when we got there, as I said, it was pitch black. We were like, okay, maybe it's just nighttime. But it was not just nighttime. It was just everything that was happening in that country. So in one spoof day, the next day I had to have a hijab on. And you can't wear colors there. The only colors you're allowed to wear is brown, navy, black, dark brown, dark blue, and gray. So all of your uniforms, which you have to have a long uniform, long sleeve, you can't show your arm, you can't show your your body. You can't at all.
Why? They deemed that as sexual? What was the point of that?
Yeah, it's a, Islam's not even supposed to be this way. And we were never religious. Okay, we never were. Mm-hmm. And it's called for women, it's like demeaning women, number one, but it is for sexual. You're not supposed to show your skin. You're not supposed to show your hair. And I couldn't even understand it. I mean, till this day, honestly, the whole Islam, what they do, it doesn't even make any sense because that's not what Islam was during the Shah's regime. Okay. So those are two, people think this is what Islam is. And I am by any means, we never practiced Islam to begin with. Okay. And I'm actually going more toward Christianity now, more than anything. Yeah. So the key was that when I was there, and you had to wear pants underneath. You had to have shoes with socks. You could not wear makeup. Okay, your hair totally had to be covered. You couldn't talk to guys. You couldn't even talk to you when you went out. You were not allowed to talk to a boy. You were too segregated, and we were in schools that were all women, all girls, and then all boys. It went from me being totally one day, literally in a travel of 7 days that took us to go to Iran, from being totally free and being able to do whatever you want to do, mm-hmm. to being absolutely nothing. You're not able to do anything. You couldn't listen to music. Obviously, there's no alcohol, so there was no social events. It was only within your own family that you could get together. It was all done undercover in a way, like when we did parties, it was like going in a basement somewhere, and we would take our hijabs off and we would talk, have a good time or listen to some music. It was absolutely, and the regime, the Islamic police were everywhere. You couldn't go outside without them walking around and making sure that, you're in line.
And so if you got out of line and you showed your hair, or you showed your skin, or you showed your arm, or you wore makeup, what were the repercussions of that?
It really depends on who was doing it, right? Like one time, just accidentally, my hijab went off and part of my hair was showing. And mind you, I'm anywhere from 10, 11, 12, or 13 years old.
You're just a little kid, right? You don't even understand this.
You don't. So, you might be running, you might be whatever, and it went back. And so sometimes they would just come and yell at you. Sometimes they would hit you. They had a little stick that would hit you and tell you to put your, pull your scarf up. And some of them, if you even looked at them wrong, I remember being with a girlfriend of mine, and I think we were both at that time 11 or 12 years old, and we were just talking and laughing. We were on campus because my dad worked for a university in Isfahan, mm-hmm. and the guy just came in. He came over and he goes, "Hey, you guys can't talk. Put your hijab on." And so we put it more forward, and she said, "You know what? My hair wasn't even showing." She just said something back to him, and he literally totally punched her, and she landed on the ground. And then I went close, and I started tearing up and crying, and I looked at him like I was going to do something, and he said, "I will do worse to you." And I just did not do anything. So some were brutal, absolutely brutal, and and if if you did things, like I was listening to music one time in their apartment because my dad was the professor there, and the music, I just brought it outside just for a tiny bit, and the music got out. They, within not even 5 minutes, they knocked on my dad's the door, and they said to make sure that the music was off, and they warned my dad. They're like, if we keep having to talk to you about your daughter, she is eventually we're going to have to arrest her, or we're going to put her into a jail. Like, my dad was literally, like, felt that he needed to get me out of there, or there was something going to happen to me. Because I was a free spirit, you know? Like, my brother had a tiny little motorcycle, very small. Like, I got on it. I'm 12 years old. I'm just trying to be on campus. And they called my dad. They grabbed me and forcefully, and they took me to my dad's. And they're like, if you don't control her, we're eventually going to take her.
Were you ever abused?
No, thank God. No, my dad was a professor of the university, so they respected him. But there were other girls that I went to school with that were absolutely treated more horribly than I was. I mean, there was one time that, you know, one of the Islamic police, I was off campus, and at that point, like they were, because we were girls, and just talking to you're not allowed to, I'm 10 or 11, you're not doing anything other than possibly.
You're a child. What are you doing at 10 or 11?
You're doing
You're
nothing.
a little kid.
You're just being a child, right?
Yes.
Especially I was in America for a while, right?
Yeah.
So I am talking to just this kid, another boy. And at that point, the only time I remember that I got hit was I was off campus, and I felt something really sharp hit the back of me, like in the lower back. And it was one of the Islamic police telling me to stop talking to the boy.
You know, you describe yourself as a free spirit. You went from freedom to fear, where you couldn't do anything. So it wasn't even so much that you're a free spirit. You were just being you. If you had been in this country and then you had gone back to Iran, where life was so completely different, I mean, that must have been like so difficult to deal with, and really for a child to even understand what in the world was going on.
Well, I mean, I was here in America, and it's like, honestly, imagine being free and then somebody putting you in prison like the very next day, and for nothing that you've done. Do you know? I could understand if you do something wrong and that's your situation. But we didn't. We were just going back home. Yeah. And it was crazy on how they treated you. And then the Iran-Iraq war happened, and we say Iran and Iraq. There's no here, so it's Iran and Iraq. The war broke through. When the war went, it got worse. It was considerably worse. I mean, we had blackouts at nighttime. We had to put huge tapes on the windows because the airplanes would come by and your whole entire windows would shake. You would hear the siren at nighttime. And it was, I mean, as a 10, I think at that point I was 11 or 12, to then go from being free to that kind of, I don't know, about a whatever year or so, then to a war. I mean, when we drove to go places, places were bombed. But then I saw graves from people that were dead from the war. They had mass graves. And I remember driving. My dad was driving, and I was in the back seat. And they were putting bodies into 4, 5, 6, 7 bodies into a mass grave. And I saw that, and I was crying. I remember that day, honestly, like it was yesterday.
Horrible. So what was the turning point then that your dad said, we need to get out of here? What happened?
My dad, truly, and, you know, I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers. Actually, I have 3 sisters and 3 brothers originally. And so, my mom was married, but we're the only full brother is my younger brother, but we just don't feel that way. We've always been together forever, so we're always a great family. And my dad realized that if he does not, and, you know, there's arranged marriages going on. I mean, there's like a lot of stuff going on over there because you can't date. There's no dating. There's no talking. There's mainly arranged marriages. And my dad's like, no, this is not how my daughter is going to grow up. So he started the process of trying to get us out of the country. It took almost 2 years to do that. A lot of bribing. And then when he was in America, believe it or not, he made really good friends with Mormons and State College. It's a very Mormon population was there. And he wrote to them. He did everything. They were able to pseudo help us. But my dad did a lot of bribing, a lot of talking, a lot of time to be able to get us out of Iran. And that took almost 2 years. And during that time, the war was happening, and he did everything. His story is absolutely pretty amazing on what he did to make sure that we can get out of Iran.
And you guys kind of escaped to get out of there.
We did. We escaped, and we tried to bring my oldest brother, was drafted for the war because the Iran-Iraq war was happening. So we couldn't take him. He was left behind. We really tried. So we did it in 2 groups because we couldn't all go together. So the first group was my one sister, my niece at that time, my brother, and we took a cousin with us, a big guy. He was actually a distant cousin. And you couldn't come straight to America then. During the Iran-Iraq war, you couldn't just get in a plane and come straight to America. You could not do that from Iran. So you always had to go either through Austria or Germany or somewhere else. So we went to Germany. We were able to go to Germany. And it took us almost 3 months to be able to get the asylum visa to come to America. And we were dirt poor. I do have a picture of me. We were at the church, and we went to the church of the Mormons, and we picked out clothes because it was so cold in Germany. And I have a fur coat because it was in the left behind, I can't remember the words escaping me right now, but where people donate the donation. I had boots, I had a hat, and we were living in a place where the students live. I don't know what they're called. It's like in Germany, all the students live there. It's very cold. There's bunk beds there.
Like a hostel.
Yes, thank you. I use a different word that's always not the right one. So a hostel, and we literally, do you know that Shark Tank, at one point when I opened up my business at the beginning, reached out to me and they wanted to tell my story, and I did a video for them. But so we are 5 people. We literally had a loaf of bread and a pack of bologna, and we had to live off of that in 1 week. So my cousin, long distance, which we called him an uncle, he was 6'5" guy. He said, "I can't live like this." He actually went back to Iran. He literally could not do it, and he went back to Iran. It was the hardest 3 months ever, but thank God we prayed, and the Mormons did help us a little bit to be able to survive living there until we got our asylum visa. We applied for it. We did everything for it. They did stuff here in Penn State at State College to help us, but it took us almost 3 months to do so. We truly thought at one point we weren't going to make it.
But you did.
But we did.
And now you have this incredible life of freedom. You've been here for decades. You own your own business now. You know, what's funny is, we were supposed to do this podcast about a month ago to talk about Iran, and you had some family issues come up and we weren't able to connect, and now this happened. But you really have a message here for people who live in this country. I don't think, we hear people saying in this country, "Oh, I'm oppressed. Oh, I'm discriminated against." When you hear that, how does that make you feel, and what do you want to say to them?
I understand that people's situations is to each his own, right? Yeah. And I'm sure for some reason they feel that way. But, you don't know what that is until you truly live it to a highest form. When we came to America, it was 1984, and it was the winter again at Penn State. We went straight from Germany. We ended up being back in State College because that's where they could help us. when we came here, we literally were honestly dirt poor, absolutely dirt poor. My dad had a PhD and he worked at a gas station in Hershey. And then his second job was driving a bus for our school, my school, So Hershey happened later on, but we ended up being in State College, and he was driving a school bus because he was overqualified to do anything. So when we got here to America, we literally almost kissed the ground that we were on. And, it just was really hard because you come from, as poor as we were. Obviously my other family was still in Germany. The second wave was in Germany waiting to come to America, and we all were finally able to get to America by 1984. And I tell people, you got to love this country. Like, I love this country. You can always look at what you don't have. And if you look at what you don't have, you're always going to be lacking something. And if you look at what you do have, and what you have in America is pretty incredible. I mean, there's an immigrant. I'm an immigrant, came here when I was 14. And then I've been working since I've been 14. My first job was delivering newspapers in the morning. Believe me, Saturday and Sunday, and newspaper Sundays those days was pretty heavy. But my dad would drive, and I would get out of the car, and I would deliver the papers. And I was still grateful. I mean, I was grateful. My brothers worked at McDonald's. My sister worked at Wise Market bagging and cashing. We all had a job. Then eventually I worked at McDonald's, and that's where I gained a lot of weight, but that's a different story. So I love French fries. But, we had each other. There was like 6, and then my niece 7, my dad. There were 9 of us that we lived in a 2-bedroom place in State College. We had 1 bathroom for 9 people. And yet, when we look back on those years when my sister and I get together, all we can remember is how grateful we were to be together. I mean, I don't understand how people can, and it's just so awful now. And I'm an empath, right? I'm an empath. It's awful to be an empath, just so you know. It really is. I don't recommend it for anybody. Okay. And, when I see it on social media, when I'm around certain friends and they say how horrible Trump is or whatever, and I don't even care about politics. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about love where you are. Love what you can do. Love the fact that you can wear a color you can wear. You can have some makeup on if you want to have it. You can talk to a boy. You are not suppressed to a point where you are really not even considered a human being. Like, you're not allowed to even talk. And if it wasn't for your own family loving you and not being that way, the regime over there would have crushed every single woman in the world if it wasn't for other women in your own family. And here, when I hear things like that, I just want people to be grateful. And I know it's like, I was talking to a friend, she's like, I don't need to be there to understand what you went through, but, things are still bad here. I said, I get it, okay? However you're thinking, things are bad. But at one point, you have to understand you still have your freedom. You still can get up in the morning and watch TV if you want to. Go drive a car if you want to. Wear red if you want to, You can listen to music. You can literally talk without looking around, or walking without looking around to see if your hair is showing or if somebody's going to punch you or beat you. There were women that were stoned. I mean, they literally did stoning still over there. They stoned women. I mean, how can you not feel blessed and grateful for a country that in every 4 years or 8 years, it's going to keep changing. Whoever is going to run it, that is going to change. But how your freedom is, how you get up on a daily basis and you're able to make your own choices, go places, wear what you want, eat what you want, listen to music, that you have that. Everybody has that every single day when they wake up in the morning. And how can you not be grateful for that? Like, that is like the greatest gift in the world. And it's called freedom. And it's called freedom of choice. We had zero choice to do anything. None of it was a choice for us. Our clothes was not a choice. Listening to music was not a choice. Talking to someone was not a choice. We had zero choice on what we did from the time we got up, sometimes to the time that we went to bed.
Nadia, as we wrap things up here, there's still so much uncertainty. This just happened. And we really don't know what is going to happen in Iran. What is your hope for the Iranian people?
My hope is for them to never give up hope. That truly is. And I think you and I were talking on the phone that I said, when this whole thing began, I was telling my friends, I said, part of me feels like I should go there and fight. I should be part of women's movement because of how I felt. And obviously they're like, no, it's not a good thing to do. I said, I understand that. I'm not going to jump on a plane and do that. But part of me felt I was so drawn to do that. So it's hope. I really hope that they never give up on hope and that they continue to fight. And I want the Shah's son to hopefully do the right thing and be able to go and govern the people there. And I hope, honestly, and I pray that whether it be Israel or America, to continue to support it and not leave it in shambles of them trying to figure out what they need to do next. I think we need guidance. We need support still. And that is my prayer that it will continue to happen.
And we will pray that things end peacefully. But again, there is so much uncertainty at this point. Nadia, I know this was a tough time for you. I know you were very, very emotional, but I am so grateful that you agreed to come on the podcast and share your thoughts not only on what is happening right now, but what life was like, so that we have an idea and we have a sense and we have a glimpse into what life was like under this regime in Iran. So again, much gratitude to you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I just pray that people understand what they have and what they can do. You live in a free country and you can do whatever you want to do with it and in it. And I want to thank you so much for having me. And I really do hope that if anybody wants to reach out to me and talk to me and ask me and want to get to know a little bit more about this, I want to let anybody know I'm absolutely totally 100% about you reaching out and getting to know me or getting to know the situation better. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadia. What a powerful message Nadia had. What an unbelievable story and growing up under this regime, describing this life of fear and oppression. And again, she just wants us all to have gratitude that we do, in fact, have freedom in this country, that we have freedoms every single day, and we should not ever take that for granted. Thanks again for tuning in, for listening and watching. As always, do me a favor. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chick2Chick USA. That way, every time we come out with a new podcast episode, you will get an alert on your phone. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. A powerful message from Nadia. And as we continue to watch things unfold in Iran, we can only hope and pray for peace. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.